All right, so we are officially on chapter 6, module 8, 6-4. And I know nobody's asked, but the old lecture videos have different 6- numberings. I used to split up a little differently over 3 weeks. I think 4 weeks is better for breathing room and to give us plenty of time. Rather have a little extra time to go over this than to rush through it, and people who otherwise would be able to get it feel confused because they didn't have enough time to digest this chapter. So we're now in chapter 4, we're now on quiz 6-4. That's what I'm trying to say. So now we should be experts in all things FIFO. We have our step 1, where we have TEU equals units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. And we have step 2, where we calculate rates, and that is current costs only of whatever the class of costs we're talking about over our TEU equals the rates. And specific to 6-4 here, we're going to be going over step 3, as well as some questions that have you go through step 1 and 2 and 3, or just step 2 and step 3 or something like that. But step 3 is only in 6-4. In that case, we have 2 classes of questions: ending WIP questions, where it's asking for what is the cost in ending WIP, either what's the direct material cost in ending WIP, what's the conversion cost in ending WIP, what's the transferred in cost in ending WIP, only on rarer occasions, there aren't that many questions like that, or what's the total cost in ending WIP, so DM, CC, TI, ooh, that's a wrong one, TI, or total. And we have what's the cost of units completed and transferred out. We sometimes will say that verbiage. Same categories of costs I could ask about. And luckily, if I'm asking about the ending WIP cost of any kind, you're going to follow the same procedure that you had for the weighted average method. So hopefully that comes naturally. You can transfer over that knowledge directly into it and say, well, I'm going to take the equivalent units in ending WIP, multiply it by the rates from step 2, either ones that I calculated during the problem, if it's a more comprehensive problem, or the ones that the professor gave me in the problem. So that luckily is all the same. And then for when it's units completed, we talked about how first we have to figure out units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units, because this reflects work done this period. And then multiply that by the rates. Here, I'll put that to the side. Rate or rates, depending on what I'm asking. If it's just one, what's the direct materials? You'll have to multiply it by the direct material rate. But if I'm asking for total cost of units completed and transferred out, you have to multiply by all the cost categories that apply. And then you make sure you add in the beginning WIP costs that we have faithfully excluded from our calculations in steps 1 and 2, because they were the first in, so they're going to make sure they end up in units completed. They put them in orbit. They're going to come back at the very end here, and then we have that gives us units completed cost. The units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. Here, I'll put the parentheses around here. That actually is mathematically important. Units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units times the rate, and then add in the beginning WIP costs. Then we have our units completed cost, which is what we're asking for right here. So that's going to be the style of the problems there. I'll leave this down because it's in the camera field of vision. So let's go into some problems and do some of them. Okay, so it's a good question. It's a step 3 only question. I can tell that because the professor has so kindly provided the rates. So if I have the rates, that means I don't have to do TEU. I don't have to calculate the rates. It's already there. So the question can only be asking me something about step 3 to complete the tasks in step 3. And at the very end, of course, I can see this question stem, how much is the total cost of units in ending work in process for February? So this is an ending work in process cost question with total costs. So I get to do the same, stop moving that. I'll do the same thing that we did in weighted average. So I get to take these, looks like I'm going to take both types of costs that we have, and I'm going to multiply the ending WIP equivalent units by these rates. If we forget that, remember that the rate it means something. It's dollars per equivalent unit. So that's, I will move it now. I lied. Dollars over equivalent units. And if I want to get just dollars, I have to multiply by equivalent units for that to cancel out. And I end up with just dollars. So if I'm asking for the cost in ending WIP, I take the rate, multiply by the ending WIP equivalent units, and I end up with the ending WIP dollars. So it works nice and simple if you want that mnemonic to remember the procedure. So let's look at the ending WIP equivalent units. Got my Excel sheet up here, and we'll move it there. We'll get, so this is a ending WIP total cost FIFO question. So we have $100. $100 is our DM rate. $400 per equivalent unit is our conversion cost rate. And I just said a second ago what we're going to do, which is look at the ending WIP equivalent units. We're going to have different amounts for DM and CC. So we have our physical units, 75. Okay, let's start with that. And then they're 100% complete with respect to direct materials, and they're only 50% complete with respect to conversion costs. So I can multiply out there and get ending WIP equivalent units. So like I said, we need to multiply these rates. Oh, let's make that prettier then. Everything via column here. The DM rate times the DM ending WIP equivalent units gets us $7,500 of direct materials cost in ending WIP. And the conversion cost rate, conversion cost dollars per equivalent unit, way back up here, 400, times the 37.5 equivalent units that are in ending WIP with respect to conversion costs, gives us $15,000 of conversion cost in ending WIP. So we take the total of that, sum those together, we get the total cost of $22,500. I didn't see it at first. I was getting a little worried. All right. Yeah.
What is the difference between ending work in progress and transfer out?
Yep.
Total cost of units.
So the ending work in process means it's still in process. Whereas if it's transferred out, it means we must have completed it. I am ignoring the possibility of scrap. I think that's a bridge too far, given many people's first introduction to process costing. But we assume that we complete everything that we transfer out. I don't know. Does that answer the question? So it's the in process part is maybe the most useful part of ending WIP. It's still in process. It's unfinished. Whereas if it's transferred out, it was finished. It's on to either the next department or to the sales floor where it's going to be sold off. It's finished goods.
So what would we do if it was
For this question right here? Well, let's do that. If it said total cost for units completed and transferred out. I think there are 2 R's in there. I'll have to go with it. So we would figure out, first of all, our units completed minus our beginning work in process equivalent units. We have enough information to do that. So we have units completed. We're still going to keep the columns of DM and CC here, different classes of cost that we have. We have 2,700 units completed, right here. And now we're going to have beginning WIP equivalent units, because we're going to have to subtract away the beginning WIP equivalent units. We don't want to charge those beginning WIP equivalent units with this period's rates of $100 and $400. So beginning WIP, we have 100 units. physical units in beginning WIP, and they are 100% complete with respect to direct materials, and 40% complete with 40% complete with respect to conversion costs. So converting that into equivalent units, that means we have 100 equivalent units in beginning WIP with respect to direct materials and 40 equivalent units with respect to conversion costs. So our units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units is 2,600 for direct materials and 2,660 for conversion costs. And I used a phrase, I'll use the same phrase here. Those are the equivalent units completed with this period's work. That's the phrase right there. Taking units completed minus the beginning WIP. So this is equivalent units completed with this period's work. So we can apply this period's rates to those units. Oh wait, here we go. Yeah, I wanted to do that instead. This period's rate times the equivalent units completed with this period's work. Okay, now we have these right here. These are great. And what we would need to do is the question would have to give us what the beginning WIP cost is as well, which this question does not give us that. So let's just say, for sake of argument, there. What? It does give us the beginning WIP costs. Oh, sorry, 12,000 and 3750. Thanks, Dylan. Okay, so this is our beginning WIP cost. This is the cost of work completed this period. And we can sum those. No, we don't want to multiply them. And now we can sum the total. Okay, so this should be, unless I've missed something, here, this should be the answer if it were to ask you cost of units completed and transferred out. So we have to start with units completed. That's the number of units we're going to be charging. This is the number of units that were completed. We want to make sure we don't include any work done last period, which we have to subtract out the equivalent units from beginning WIP to do that. So now I have this number right here, and great, now we can multiply the rates by that number. This is the equivalent units completed with this period's work. We get a dollar amount here. This is a dollar amount of kind of this period's work. In fact, if you summed this up, you would have the current period direct materials and conversion costs right there. However we came up with those $100 and $400 rates, the numerator for direct materials would have been 260,000. No, I'm speaking beyond. Sorry, no, the numerator would have included 260,000 plus whatever we ended up in ending WIP. I'm totalizing this instead of the way I shouldn't. Anyway, we'll go back a step. So we multiplied equivalent units completed with this period's work times the rates, and then we added in. We made sure we added in at the very end our beginning WIP cost. We can't forget that step, and then we can total the overall amounts here and get the answer. Does that make sense, Haley? Okay. Okay. And we'll have questions like that as we go on. Other questions about this one? Number one? No? Okay. I have in the past tend to think of this kind of question of the FIFO cost of units completed, transferred out, especially if you have to do steps 1, 2, and 3 as I don't know, the most difficult is the best word I can think of. The most difficult kind of question in the class. I mean, it's going to be different for every person. Some people will find other things that are more difficult. That's fine. It's not like I hate you if you have different things that you think are difficult. But on average, this is the most involved. The most steps and rules you have to remember, it seems like. And there's just no way around it being the trickiest because of the cognitive load it puts on you to do this one question. And we only did the step 3 part of it. We already had the rates provided to us. So if the comprehensive question is asking this, cost of units completed and transferred out, and just gives you enough, just gives you the raw material to the raw basis to start from step 1 and go all the way through, then that's the most difficult in chapter 6, and chapter 6 tends to be the most difficult in the course. Okay, so this one here asks for total cost of units completed and transferred out. So it does something very similar, with the details being slightly different. And it gives us, notice here, one part of these questions is making sure that you look carefully at the labels. So equivalent units in beginning whip, I already have, it's already given me basically this step right here. It's giving me this beginning whip equivalent units for direct materials and conversion costs. So great, I don't have to do the multiplication that I did right here. So here's this question. This is price company, units completed and transferred out.
I think we did this one last week.
We did this one last week? This very same one? Okay. Well, then let's just copy over some things. I think we'll be okay. So we have 12,500. I'll be very brief through it then. That's what I'll manage that. I'm going to get rid of these two, and we have 500 beginning whip equivalent units in beginning whip. So 500 beginning whip equivalent units with respect to direct materials. 450 beginning whip equivalent units with respect to conversion costs, and we need to make sure this is being multiplied by the right rate. Oh, didn't put the rate in. 75, 125. And then, okay, so this is our cost of work done this period. We have 32,500 direct materials beginning whip cost. We have 39,500 as beginning whip cost for conversion costs. And so 24,78250 should be the answer there. No, stop. All right. Scoot along. I just want to see a cell in this one. B31 and C31. And multiplying this equivalent units completed with this period's work, which is units completed minus the beginning whip equivalent units, times the rate that was given. Just the rate right there, times this 1200 right here. And then this one's the same thing, just the other column. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Can't forget to include these at the end too. Right there. All right, let's roll on down. Okay, we did an any whip cost. We'll skip that for now. I kind of want to jump over to some open answers. Didn't take very long. Okay, so this is an any whip question. So let me have you do this, since we've gone over it once, and I'll give you a couple minutes then to complete this question right here. Let me scroll it down a little bit. There we go. I will work on it over here. Let's see. Oh, lost a bit of it. There. How many need more time? I don't think I saw any hands. One more hand. Okay, one more time. Okay. Who would like to report their answer? 44.55. Okay, I got something a little different than that. 59.85. I got that one. I got 59.85. So let's look through what we got and why. So I took the rates right here first. And then I took the ending WIP physical units, the ending WIP percent complete. And it says 60% complete with respect to conversion costs. And then it says that direct materials are added when units are 50% complete with respect to conversion costs, which means that they're 100% complete. So they passed the 60% threshold on the conversion cost side, so all the direct materials have been dropped in. It's a dumpling problem. So 100% of the direct materials are in. And so now I have ending WIP equivalent units right here. Just multiplying these. And I took the rates times those ending WIP equivalent units and summed them to get 59.85. Is that okay? All right. Anybody try to develop rates? Start to be like, oh, I got this. I can make TEU stuff here. It's a dumpling problem, so I'm going to cook some TEU up. That's about the level of the joke today. I'm sorry. That's what I got. Yeah, yeah. Yes. I multiplied. This is multiplying the direct materials rate by the ending WIP equivalent units. No problem. These are cost per equivalent unit rates. So they're dollars over equivalent units. So I'm going to multiply by equivalent units to end up with dollars here at the end, which is what it's looking for, total cost in dollars here. So let's see if we can put that in there. It does not like the extras there. All right. So level of confidence on that one, pretty confident in that kind of question, at least now. You feel like you're pretty good? Good, thumbs up. Nod, I see lots of nods. Wasn't technically a response that I was prompting, but I will interpret that as a raised hand or a thumbs up. All right, we need to do this kind of question right here. And we'll do this one together, and we'll find something like this on another attempt for you to do. So thus far, I'm pretty sure the only kind of question we've done is just step 3 stuff. I think every single question that I've pulled up has provided the rate for you. So dig back, real far back to last week. So you can do FIFO step 1 and step 2, because that's what this one is asking for. Doesn't have rates in it yet, but it's asking for direct materials cost of units completed and transferred out. Okay, so don't forget all the stuff we need to know for step 3 stuff here. But we also need to go back and remember what we need to know for our step 1 stuff. Luckily, it's just direct materials costs, so we don't have to figure out anything having to do with conversion costs. So this is DM cost of units completed. Open answer question. All right, so let's build a little WIP units T account. I will merge and center and make it pretty. We have 11 units. I'll move it over one though. And they're 59% complete with respect to conversion costs. This is 11 units in beginning work in process. 59% complete with respect to conversion costs. We have 635 units completed. We have 12 units in ending WIP, and they are 65% complete with respect to conversion costs. Okay, and then we know from this sentence here that all the direct materials are added at the beginning of the process. So all these 11 units and all these 12 units are 100% complete with respect to direct materials. So I'll put that there. And also I'm going to, just, I don't need a function there. I'm going to figure out units completed now. Units completed, 634. We started with 11 in beginning WIP, added 635, ended up with 12. That means we had to complete 634 units. And if we were factoring in scrap, then we'd have to say, well, we completed or had scrap of 634 units and figure that out. But okay, just an aside for if you encounter a scrap problem years down the road when you take the CPA exam or a CMA exam, something like that. Okay, so that's our units completed. Great. TEU, here, I'll put that down one, because I'm going to say TEU equals units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. So I have units completed now. Oh, can we use a trick? And you remember our little secret sauce we could do when there's a special case? Is this a special case? I saw a yes and a no. All right, so the special trick is it's gonna end up as units started under particular cases. TEU in FIFO is the same as units started in a very particular case when it's direct materials that are added at the very beginning of the process. And we'll test that out. So we have beginning WIP, equivalent units. It's this 11 times the 1, just to be extra pedantic about it. Ending WIP equivalent units is this 12 times the 1. So we have units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. We end up with TEU, same as units started, right here and right here. So yeah, this is that one narrow case. Direct materials and direct materials are all added at the very beginning of the process. So we could have saved a little bit of time if we'd remembered that. If not, this is surefire going to get us there. These cells here, whether it's that narrow case or not, this will get us TEU. All right, so TEU is the denominator, and we're looking for a numerator. What numerator should we use? Perfect. And we're looking for direct materials cost specifically, so we'll focus on current period direct materials cost right here. So we have 6309 current DM cost. And so our DM cost per equivalent unit is the current direct materials cost divided by our total equivalent units. So that's all right. $9.94 is what it would round to. We're going to leave it as it is. Make sure we don't go into a rounding problem, given the way Canvas grades things. Okay, so now we are at the point where we started all the other problems. We have the rates. Now we have to do our step 3 stuff. This is asking for units completed here. And so we need to figure out the work done this period and multiply it by this period's rate of $9.94, whatever we're round to anyway. And then make sure we add in our beginning WIP direct materials cost, which is $351. Right here. And then we've solved the problem. All right, so we have units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. This is equivalent units completed with this period's work. And we'd multiply that by this period's rate per equivalent unit. So this is direct materials cost from this period's work. I think that's at least similar to the title I used in the textbook. And we would be tempted to stop right there, but don't. Remember, we kept these costs as first in, so we're going to make sure they end up unit completed, they're first out. So we put them into orbit at the very beginning of the process. And they're going to come back here at the very end. Add them in, 351. I'll leave that. What did I do? Whoa. I had an extra 6 somehow. D62 plus D64, not D626 plus D64. Okay, so this should be our total DM cost for units completed and transferred out. Is that looking okay? Yes. In fact, let me try a trick. Oh, see, got all the formulas in here now. Change the view to the different formulas. That helps. Maybe it doesn't in this particular case. But yeah, it's it's the rate times the equivalent units completed with that rate, with this period's rate. And we got this by taking units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. Is that all right? Good. Okay, what other cells do you want me to highlight and look at? Okay, I didn't hear any requests. So let's put that in. It'll round down to 77. And let's see if we got these things right. I am curious to see if this dumpling style problem, as is tradition, has a problem with it. So let's see if we got this right. Yep.
Do any of the costs that we found fall under the do not round rule early? Or is that just
This right here, yes. I kept this as a just there in the cell with all the numbers it has because I didn't want to have a rounding problem. Is that the question you're talking about? Yeah. And let's see if it would have created a problem. So let's round that to 2 digits. So we would have been $3.62. No, let's get the actual difference here. No. $2.85 off. And I think if I if I did these things right, as I had a plan for these kinds of questions specifically, I think it actually gives you a plus and minus 5 window there. I can tell because it has very small units here in the top. I shrank the units so that the difference you would get for a rounding difference. So we would have gotten away with it this time if we'd rounded the rate. But don't try and get away with it. Life advice: never try to get away with it. You won't. Well, you usually won't. I'm going to say it that way because we just got away with it here. Actually, no. Let's not test it. Let's make sure we got this right. All right. So we got question 1 right. Good. Question 2 right. Again, apparently. Unanswered. Yeah. Okay. Question 5 we got right. Oh, the dumpling one. It liked it. Good. Question 7 we got right as well. Okay, good. All right. So what I think I want to do is I want to get another attempt and get one of these comprehensive units completed and transferred out costs questions and give you a few minutes to work on it. And then we'll go over, see what we got. See where we're rusty on it, where we're clear, where we're not. With conversion costs? Yeah, let's target one either that says that's just conversion costs or that is total. I think I'll do one of those. I'll find one like that. Good idea. All right. Any whip. Total yaws. Yeah, this is one right here, I think. All right, I think I'm going to put it just as the full screen. Just give me a second here. I'll go up here. Okay, so let's have a couple minutes, maybe upwards of 3 here because it's got more steps, and work on this problem right here. So total cost for units completed and transferred out is what it says here. Make sure you pay attention to all the details. It has a couple, at least one other detail that's different from the one we did just a second ago. Let's do another minute or so. That's all right. Okay. What do we get? I got that too. So that's either right or we're wrong together. No, one or the other. Other people feel pretty confident they got a different answer. I see people got the same answer. So by vote, we're right. Just majority rules is the secret to these questions, actually. 12,658 and 16 cents. Yeah. Okay, let me show you what I did. And then after that, if you still are like, well, you know what, why isn't it showing, what did I do wrong? Let's go into detail after that. Okay, so the first thing to note is this is a dumpling problem. So all direct materials are added when units are 50% complete with respect to conversion costs. And if you ignored that, you may still have gotten it right because it looks like beginning WIP and ending WIP are both past that threshold. So if you ignored that and just went with, like, if your pre-programming was always to assume direct materials are 100% complete, you by luck would have gotten this part right too. So we have 143 units in beginning WIP, 62% complete with respect to conversion costs, which means that they're past the 50% threshold. So they're 100% complete with respect to direct materials, which is what this 1 over here represents, 1 for 100%. We started 905 units. We ended with 150 units that are 69% complete with respect to conversion costs, and that's past the 50% threshold. So they are 100% complete with respect to direct materials. That's what the all here means. All means 100%. And we can get units completed as well by adding beginning WIP units plus units started minus ending WIP units. All talking about physical units, no equivalent units yet, remember? So that's units completed. And yeah, in the direct material space, because both beginning WIP and ending WIP are past the threshold, they're all 100% complete. Yes, technically, this also fits as far as 905 here is the same as units started. But on the conversion cost side, we do need to incorporate some percents complete to get equivalent units here in beginning WIP and ending WIP. So we're following this equation. Total complete units equals units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. So units completed. Then we have beginning WIP equivalent units, 143 times 0.62. And then we have ending WIP equivalent units, 150 times 0.69. And then we have TEU, which is units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units plus ending WIP equivalent units. All right, so we have two different TEUs here for direct materials and conversion costs. And then we're going to take current period costs for each respective type of cost. We have direct materials here, and we have conversion costs here. Put them in their columns. They're going to be the numerators for our rates. The TEU appears as the denominator, and that is what we end up with right here. Numerator of cell D81, or this 6,523, which was copied over right here. And the denominator of 905, which is our TEU with respect to direct materials. And we do the same thing over here in conversion costs. We take the current period conversion costs, which copied over just from the problem right here, and divide it by the TEU, which we just calculated right here with respect to conversion costs. The TEU with respect to conversion costs. All right, so we have our two rates. Great. These are our rates for this period's work. The cost per equivalent unit rates for this period's work. And so we need to figure out the equivalent units completed with this period's work. And just like in the previous question, that means units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. It's up here on the board too. It's in the parentheses right here. Units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. A little smidge. That helps. Okay, same thing for conversion costs over here. Units completed minus beginning WIP equivalent units. All right, and we can multiply the rates. We left the rates unrounded here. In fact, I think this problem is the numbers are large enough that even if I put a 5.5 a range of plus or minus 5 that would be counted as correct, I think you still might get it wrong. I can double check that here in the cell in a second, or in the worksheet in a second. But we left these rates unrounded. We're going to multiply them by the equivalent units completed with this period's work, this period's rates, this period's work, ends up with these numbers right here. And we don't sum them yet. Don't forget, we have one last step. We have these beginning WIP costs that we took, put them in orbit at the very beginning of the process, back at step 1, by subtracting out beginning WIP equivalent units from TEU and making sure we don't include beginning WIP costs in the numerator here for the rates. We kept them aside at the very beginning of the process. They end up at the very end of the process coming back around in orbit. So we add them in. So the beginning WIP cost of 304 get added in right here, and 487 get added in right here for conversion cost beginning WIP. All right, so now we have this period's work plus beginning WIP cost for direct materials, and this period's work, the cost of this period's work, plus beginning WIP costs for conversion costs. And we can sum those and get the total cost of units completed and transferred out. Okay, where can we double check and show you cells or ask questions? What questions do we have about this? Yeah.
So if the beginning WIP units weren't past the 50%, beginning WIP EU would be 0.
Yep, they'd be here. So let's say this is like 42%. It'd be 0% for direct materials. Yep. And so that'd flow through in everything we do. Our beginning WIP equivalent units here would be 0. So when we're calculating TEU, it says 898 minus 0 plus 150. And yeah. Put these back to where they were. But yeah, good question. Yeah. Is there a question on a quiz you're looking at that has that kind of question? Yep. Same with ending WIP. If ending WIP weren't past the threshold, let's say it's 0.2 or whatever, it's 20% complete, then this would be 0 as well. Again, assuming the threshold 50% here. Okay. Yeah. I'll take
So for step 1, we would add units completed with the ending WIP equivalent units, but we wouldn't subtract the beginning if we're doing weighted average.
Yes. Back in 2-3 weeks ago when we did 6-1, weighted average, it's almost the same equation. Like you said, it's right here. Just units completed plus ending WIP equivalent units under the weighted average method. Yeah.
For step 2, we would just combine the beginning costs and end costs.
Yep. Step 2, this is exactly in the numerator. Yep.
For step
Yes.
At that higher rate.
Yeah, we would just take units completed, ignore, don't subtract out beginning WIP equivalent units, and multiply that by the rate, and that's it. Yep. That's a good summary of the comparison between the two. Yeah, how they vary by step. Well, it's all a dance about beginning WIP units too, because we subtract them out of step 1 when we're doing FIFO. We don't subtract them out of step 1 when we're doing weighted average. We include them in step 2 when we're doing weighted average. We don't include them in the numerator here when we're doing FIFO. And then step 3 here, any WIP's the same. I already said that. But units completed, we have to play with, take out the beginning WIP equivalent units before we multiply the rate, and then add in the beginning WIP costs before we have the final cost in FIFO. And then in weighted average, we don't have to worry about either of those two things.
And if we're trying to get ending WIP, it would be the same. We would just times that by the rate.
Yep. It's always the ending WIP equivalent units times the rate. I didn't write it up here, but yeah, it's the same. Yep. Whether it's FIFO or weighted average. So I take that as a promise kept. I think in the textbook I say these two vary based on how they treat beginning WIP units and beginning WIP costs, and that really is the difference throughout. And it's got lots of like details of what that means that you've got to remember or get the questions wrong. Unfortunately for you, not so much for me. I've already written the questions. So. But at the end, conceptually, it does just hinge on how they treat those beginning WIP units and the first units in, and that's it. Okay, what else? What other questions do we have here? Go ahead. Anything's good. Yeah. You want to look at that one? Let's see if we have one like that. I don't think we have one in this one. Let's submit this, make sure we got it right. Wait, I didn't paste it in. It's this one. And it rounds to 6. Yeah, we got that right. Good. Let's try another one. Okay, here's one. There are a few of the questions like this. Is this a good one to look at? Okay, so let's look at this one. This is going to be. Looks like the question stem here is asking for total cost of units completed and transferred out, and we have rates provided for us already. So the professor has been very nice to you and has done step 1 and step 2 for you. And now you just have to do step 3. And now it is being asked units completed and total units completed cost. So there is some complexity you have to deal with, but luckily you don't have to do any of the step 1 or step 2 stuff. I don't know why they put that on the floor right there where the rolling chair has to go. All right, so this is the Aniquilalo company total cost units completed. Okay, we have our 2 rates. Looking for total cost, so we're going to keep our 2 rates here at the top, and I'm actually going to label this columns. We're looking for total cost, and so I'm going to be interested in the information about both types of cost. All right, so we have our units completed, 150,000. We need our beginning WIP equivalent units. Whoop. And we'll start with beginning WIP physical units. And then we'll do beginning WIP percent complete. And then that will give us beginning WIP equivalent units. So it looks like we have 5,000 units in beginning work in process. And they are 75% complete with respect to conversion costs. So put 0.75 here. And another dumping problem, all direct materials are added when the units are 50% complete with respect to conversion costs. So we've passed that 50% threshold because we're at 75% complete, right here. At least the beginning WIP units have. And so we have all direct materials in, meaning 100% complete. We can multiply those and get our equivalent units in beginning, work, in process. We need that because we have to figure out what was completed with this period's work. The equivalent units completed with this period's work. Now we can multiply that by this period's rate. We need to multiply this period's work, or this period's rates only by this period's work. We're getting big numbers here. And then we need to make sure we add in the beginning WIP cost. And it doesn't have it broken down by direct materials and direct materials and conversion costs. So I'm going to sum these first and then add in total beginning WIP costs to that. So this is total cost of this period's work. Total cost of units completed with this period's work. Say it that way. Okay, I know I'm on the right track here because this wrong answer here is one of the answer choices. That's good. So this is the right answer right here. 18,723,750. This is the any part of that you want me to highlight or look at? C and D100. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm just multiplying the equivalent units completed with this period's work times the rate for the respective costs. Finish that label. Completed. Yeah. Is that good? Okay. All right. Well, I'm thinking I know how to use email, I think. And we've got the rest of the week. So Thursday, the plan is we'll come back. We'll look at some 6-4 questions that you're interested in. Maybe I'll make sure we do a small sampling at least, if you don't have particular requests. And we'll also make sure we hit some of the ideas behind Chapter 7 and kind of get a nice foundation so that when we do problems next week, we know why we're doing them and how they vary and so on and so forth. And that should be it. All right. Thank you.